So I've been joined by Alex Law. Alex Law, he's been on the show before. I'm glad to have him back. He is from New Jersey, and he's running for the first district, if my memory serves me correctly. Alex, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. We have a little echo there. I don't know if you can turn your master volume down a little bit. Um, and then that way, yeah, right there's perfect, perfect. I
Good.
hope you can still hear me. So, listen, thanks for joining us. We're just going over the primary results. It looks like it's a hard night for progressives. But so before we talk about you and your race and everything else that's going on with you, tell us what you're thinking about the results that you're seeing so far.
Well, first I want to say that it's a good thing that Kasich was able to win in Ohio. Hopefully that can be the start to actually prevent Trump from getting the nomination. And I think no matter who becomes our next president, as long as it's not Donald Trump, we will be in a better position than if he were the president. So that was a shining good moment. Obviously, tough night for us Bernie fans. He did not perform as well as we would have hoped in Ohio. So as the results come in, we'll have to analyze some of the exit polls and try to understand what areas he did well in and didn't do well in, and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, tough night. I think John Kasich is Donald Trump has done an amazing job of normalizing other people who are extremists. You know, John Kasich is a very kind-hearted extremist, but he's a nice guy, right? Ted Cruz is not so much a nice guy and very much an extremist, but you know, Donald Trump has normalized the two of them. So I agree with you in the sense that at least they fought him off in Ohio. But so let's talk about Bernie Sanders having a rough night. We're going to be talking about that all night. So let's take a breather from that. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on with the progressive movement in New Jersey. Your race, you've been on before, you conveyed so much passion, and that's why I wanted to get you back on. Tell me a little bit more what's happening in your race and what's it looking like progressive-wise.
Well, for your audience that hasn't met me before, my name's Alex Law, running for U.S. Congress here in the 1st District of New Jersey, which is Camden, Gloucester, and Burlington counties, right over the bridge from Philadelphia. So we're running against the Norcross machine. Now, they're a group of Democrats in name, but they have systematically taken advantage of the people in South Jersey. And if you want to learn more about that specifically, I wrote an article for the Huffington Post earlier this week that has been read over 250,000 times.
Wow.
A lot of people are looking at that and looking at what's really going on here in Camden County. So if you're interested in that, you can look at that. But we are excited about the grassroots movement that we're putting together here in South Jersey. We have over 100 volunteers. We're doing it the old-fashioned way. We've knocked on 45,000 doors, made 50,000 phone calls. We're making a difference one vote at a time so that we can make sure that New Jersey gets its first true progressive elected to the House of Representatives to represent this wonderful state.
Tell the listeners why. So you have a difficult job tonight. I'm going to be honest with you. Everyone is watching Ohio. Everyone is watching Missouri. Well, Ohio looks like it's in the books. Missouri and Illinois. Everyone's watching those two states. Most of my listeners are Bernie Sanders supporters. So you have a difficult job of trying to tie in your race and give some encouragement to the people who are still supporting Bernie Sanders and want to go out tomorrow and do something different. That's our charge. You said that you guys are doing something unique there. You've knocked on 45,000 doors.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that, and how could that type of strategy translate into something that people are listening can actually go do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so one thing I want to say that's a little different, right? So Bernie Sanders running against Hillary Clinton. Whether you like Hillary Clinton or you don't, she's, at worst a moderate Democrat. Now, the person that I'm running against has voted with Republicans more than any Democrat in the state of New Jersey. Took over $10,000 from Donald Trump to fund his campaign, and has repeatedly partnered with Governor Chris Christie. This is someone who is not a moderate Democrat. He's essentially a moderate Republican with a whole bunch of issues with corruption. So our race is a little different than this national narrative that's going on where it's establishment Democrat versus progressive. Here we got a progressive versus basically a Republican in this primary, even though it's a Democratic primary. Now, in terms of things that your listeners can do, I know everyone is aware of the kind of phone banking that can be done for Bernie, and it's been shown to be very effective in Michigan, but not so effective in Ohio. I know they spent a ton of time, and a lot of wonderful people made some great calls to folks in Ohio, and it just didn't get the job done. And I really can't stress enough how important it is to get out there and actually talk to people in person. Now, sharing stuff online, making those phone calls, excellent stuff if you can only do that. And that's been a large part of how Bernie's been able to spread his message so effectively. But get in touch with a progressive running near you. Get in touch with Bernie's national campaign so you know where the Democratic doors are, and go out and knock on them. Go out and talk to people in person. And you'll be surprised how receptive people are when you come to their door to talk to them and have an honest conversation about what's going on with their democracy.
Yeah, and that's such an important thing that you just said, right? Because we've become comfortable with social media campaigning, that we disconnected from the old school campaigning of let's get out and listen. I've canvassed for several campaigns, several years. I can't even tell you how many doors I've knocked on. I've met people who wanted me to come in and eat dinner with them, and I met people who were ready to pull a gun on me if I didn't leave their house right away. Right? So canvassing is a thrilling experience. But it's really that one-to-one personal relationship. Open up the door, get people to talk to you, and tell them about your candidate and why they are so important. And I think that's something that has fallen by the wayside. A lot of the things that we do now is online campaigning. And so I really admire what you guys are doing there in New Jersey. Tell me how you got so many doors knocked on. What was that strategy, and how can that be replicated?
Well, so this is a big question I get all the time, because there's lots of progressive folks popping up with Bernie's success, and we'll see how many of them stick around after sort of a tough night like this. But the key is making sure that you start early. This can't be something where you latch on to a national movement or something like that. Yes, we all support Bernie. We think it's great. But if you want to run for Congress, you want to run for office, it can't be oh, today it's time for me to go do that. This needs to be something that you're committed to, that you start early, that you make sure you are organized with. And that's really been the difference with our campaign from a lot of other campaigns, is that we are tightly organized. We have 5 or 6 full-time staffers. We have over 120 volunteers. Everyone has specific targeted lists of the Democrats that we need them to talk with, and guidelines for when we want them to go out, how we want them to talk to folks, how to do it. We've trained every single one of our volunteers in person at least twice for door knocking and once for making phone calls at least. And this kind of expansive organization takes time to build, and it also takes a whole lot of discipline and commitment. It is easier to campaign online, to make great posts, to make cool videos. It's even easier to make phone calls or to create apps where people can make calls for you, and we've done that too. But that kind of ground game, it's tough. It takes organization, it takes commitment, and we're proud to say that we've had some amazing progressives here in South Jersey come out and be a part of what we're putting together.
Yeah, you hit that on the head, man. I can't agree with you more. It's the organization, it's the saturation in the community. Like if we had a map, and I only have really bad examples of like movies where I've seen an outbreak where they show the saturation map, right? So I don't want to use that example, but I want to ask you, based on your district, the first district, how saturated is your district, particularly the Democratic vote that you guys went out and knocked on doors? On a scale of 1 to 10, how saturated would your campaign be in that district? How deep into the neighborhoods did you actually get?
Well, so that's actually probably the wrong question for our district. That's thinking of it in the narrative of presidential politics. Mm-hmm. So in presidential politics, you need sort of this cultural movement. You need enormous saturation in order to win certain states or to win a nomination or win the presidency. And that's sort of the challenge that Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or John Kasich or whoever has, is you need that kind of dramatic saturation of areas. That's very difficult to do. In our race, it's very different, right? We have 174,000 Democrats in our district. We only need about 15,000 votes to win. That's it, 15,000. Wow. So rather than trying to saturate all 174,000 Democrats, what we need to do is we need to be a little smarter than that, and we need to say, okay, who are the 25 to 35,000 Democrats that are in the age range that is going to be most responsive to us, which, by the way, is 55 to 65 years old? Who are the ones that have the highest voter frequency in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we target them specifically? The people that we know are low-hanging fruit that already know to go out to vote, already are educated on why my opponent isn't the best candidate. All we have to do is get to their door, reach them, and remind them that June 7th is the day to vote. So our strategy in our district has been much more data-driven, much more targeted. And of course, if we could convince every one of those 174,000 Democrats, if we could bring out young people, would I love to do that? Absolutely. I think that would be a great thing, but that's not what we need to do to be successful here.
Okay, gotcha. That's actually that's really something serious. I like that. I like that. So you guys, you have a very targeted list, data-driven. You know who you're after. You know who you're targeted. And if you were going after 35,000, but you've knocked on 45,000 doors, and you have 45,000 doors, and you've had 50,000 calls, phone bank, so your saturation rate of the people that you needed to hear your message is pretty thorough. Then it sounds like you guys are hitting it exactly where you need to hit it.
Yeah. So there's some overlap, right? So like. Part of the challenge too is like, where are our volunteers located? So I try to make sure that I try to simplify everything. And that's a message for all you people out there who are trying to organize, that are trying to engage, whether it's for Bernie Sanders or for whoever, make things as simple as possible for volunteers, right? So with volunteers, what I like to do is say, okay, who are the Democrats that we most want to reach within 5 miles of your home, within 1 mile of your home, within the neighborhood that you live in? So that way, people can engage those folks as easy as possible. They get home from work, they can go out and do an hour without having to drive 30 minutes somewhere to do an hour and then drive 30 minutes back. That's a whole stressful thing. They'll never do it. So we don't have, through our door knocking, the 100% most efficient, but we are targeting based on that. Where we are 100% efficient is in the people that we're sending mail to, right? So there's 9,215 households in my district that voted in 2 out of the 2 last primaries. So those people are all getting a piece. There's people in my hometown where my grandfather was the mayor. Those people are getting a piece. So our targeted mailing, our advertising, our social media is as targeted as and efficient as possible. And then we try to do our best with our door knocking and phone calls.
Alex, I just want to pause for a second. So I want to run these numbers by you guys. So we're doubling up between the interview and covering the primary. Missouri is hella close. Missouri is within 1.7%. Bernie Sanders is in the lead by 1.7%. So Missouri is favoring Bernie Sanders. Illinois has closed within 6%. So there's an opportunity there. So we'll just keep our eyes on that. I love the strategy, Alex. I love what I really respect the ground game that you put together, the data game that you put together. You're putting it together. We talked about your progressive bona fides on the last call. If anybody wants to know if he's a progressive, go check out the last videos because we went through it ad nauseum. I'm sure there's some more things. We'll talk about policy on the next time that you come on. But I think what's so important right now is that you said 2 key things. It is the strategy, the ground game. It is the data, going after the right voters. And then you said something else that I didn't forget. I heard it loudly and clearly. You said how many of these progressives that jumped up on the scene because of Bernie Sanders are going to be here if Bernie Sanders doesn't win, or if Bernie Sanders, if he doesn't win. And I really wonder, there are a lot of people who have jumped on the Bernie Sanders progressive bandwagon, and I wonder, like you, how many of them would be here afterwards. But I want to make this a little more personal to my listeners. I wonder how many progressives, just your regular voters, will actually still be here if Feel the Burn doesn't go all the way to the White House. Now, that's not necessarily a question I think is fair for me to lay at your feet. But what are your thoughts about that in general?
So I think it's great that Bernie Sanders. I think it's great that Bernie Sanders has given people courage to run for office, and that they saw him as a shining example and wanted to support him and support the progressive movement the best that they could. So I don't see anything wrong with folks running for office because of that. But I do think that there is a difference from running for office to be a part of the Bernie Sanders wave as to running for office because you were ready to run for office and you had a plan in place and a ground game in place and you knew how you were going to reach your voters and engage people. So if Bernie Sanders isn't there tomorrow, obviously he will be, or in a few weeks or in a month or something like that, how many of those folks will continue to have the energy to keep running? I'm not sure. But what I can say is I really do hope that progressives are not deterred at large if Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee. I've spoken to quite a few Democrats. I've personally knocked on 9,000 doors myself. And it's a weird thing where you have some progressives who basically say, I won't vote for Hillary Clinton, I'll vote for a Green Party or not vote before I'll vote for her. And I think that's a mistake. I think, Hillary Clinton, if not our ideal candidate, is still a much better candidate than anyone that the Republicans are offering, and a much more realistic candidate than any third party for president kind of thing, especially with Michael Bloomberg not running. So I really do hope that progressives stay engaged, and if Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee, rather than dropping out of the political process altogether, make your voice heard and continue to push Hillary on these issues that are so important to us.
We're going to have, well, I don't want to say we're going to have. Let me start that sentence over. If Bernie Sanders doesn't win, we've already had a conversation. We're going to have a debate on Bernie or bust, because there's quite a few people who are Bernie or bust, and I have some pretty strong voices who are not Bernie or bust. They love Bernie Sanders to death, but they're not Bernie or bust, and we're going to actually hold a debate about that. That's a contingency plan. That's down the road. The question is tomorrow. And I want to encourage, I have to reiterate this. And I think, Alex, you were the perfect person to come on tonight because of the type of strategy that you guys engaged in. And even though it's a data-driven strategy and it's not a saturation strategy, it is still very pertinent and relevant to people who are passionate about progressivism in general, Bernie Sanders in particular, because you guys are out there doing 9,000 doors. You personally knocked on 9,000 doors. Imagine if my 80 listeners all knocked on 4,500 doors for their cause, for Bernie Sanders, for progressivism in general. That would change, just those 80 people listening right now would change via YouTube. That would change quite a bit. And so I think you're the perfect person to be on tonight, because tomorrow, regardless of what happens tonight, tomorrow they need to take the attitude of your campaign, which is not only data, not only phone banking, but the hand-to-hand combat, boots on the ground, knocking on the door, speaking with people in person, and doing some old-school retail politics, touching people right where they are. So, Alex, listen, I respect what you guys are doing over there. Tell us a little bit more about how people, my listeners, can find you, how they can support you, and what's next for your campaign.
Well, sure. So first off, if any of your listeners are in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware area, we're going to be knocking on doors with a big group of folks on Saturday morning. So if you want to come out and learn how to do it, you want to learn how to knock on doors and engage people, go to our website, alexlawforcongress.com. You can send us a message and we'll let you know where to meet us, and we'll get you educated on how to do this, how to knock on doors, and actually give you some real-life field experience. But in general, you can find me on Twitter at AlexLawNJ, Facebook.com/AlexLawNJ, and Alex Law for Congress. We talked a bit last time on the show how we build a phone app for folks anywhere in the country. If you want to make phone calls for us, help us win this election, get one of the most corrupt Democrats in the country out of office, you can do that at callsforalex.com. So we have lots of ways. If you want to engage us, you can do that. Now, if you have a personal question for me, go to the website, alexlawforcongress.com, send the message in. I respond to every single person that writes me a message through that website, every single person within about 7 days. So if you have a question about field engagement, if you have a question about our campaign or a policy you see on the website, or our videos or our animations or anything, send it there. I will get back to you personally. We can have a conversation about it.
Sounds good. Alex, you know what? I was getting ready to let you go, but Anoa has a question that I want her to ask of you. Anoa, jump in there. Let me make sure your mic is on, Anoa, before I hand it to you. So, yeah, there you go. Anoa, you're live.
Hi, Alex. How are you? It's great listening to you talk. I'm going to look and see who I know in your area and definitely give you, plug your information. Like everything you just said is like absolutely on point. And yeah, one thing we wanted to ask you about, we were talking about from your last time. We noticed that you added a section on your website about Black Lives Matter. Just wonder if you can just give us a little update about, the additions you made, and then also just like the dynamics and being in South Jersey. You're not far from Philadelphia, as we're also looking towards Pennsylvania, going back to the presidential election. That's going to be another hot area to kind of get some boots on the ground and grassroots activism going on. So just wonder if you could just give us a little update about, the Black Lives Matter editions, and then also just kind of your sense of just that whole area right there where you're at, South Jersey, Philly, as we're looking forward.
Sure. I will. By the way, thank you for kind words about what we're doing here. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I get excited when you guys come on and you start talking. It just makes me so excited that there are people out there doing the good work, and like we get excited. So thank you.
Good. No, I'm glad you're excited. I mean, we need as many excited people as we can, and that's actually an interesting thing, right? Is that in this district with a core group of about 30 to 40 volunteers and an extended group of volunteers about 120. We're on the brink of accomplishing something truly historic, because when I win, not only will it be beating the most powerful political machine in New Jersey, yes, we're going to do that with probably less than $50,000 to put in the youngest congressman since 1974. And that's something special and should show that across the country, it doesn't require hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to do something special in politics. And it doesn't require an army of thousands. You can do this. You can do this wherever you are. If you start early enough, you bring your message to enough people, and you get out there and actually talk to voters. So that's number one, answering your question.
Alex, I have to cut you off, Alex.
Sure.
You say you're running this campaign on $50,000?
Yeah, or less, probably.
No, seriously. Let's start over.
He needs to write an ebook or something.
Are you running this campaign this far, and you've done as much as you've done in less than $50,000?
Less than half of that right now. We have not spent. I don't think we've spent more than 1% of our time on fundraising. We've run this entire thing so far on the generosity of people like your listeners sending us $5, $10, $20 through our website. We've had over 1,500 people donate. But the reality is, I made a decision early in this campaign that rather than going to talk to rich people and begging them to like me and to help me get into office, I was going to spend every single ounce of my time out there on people's doorsteps, knocking on doors and talking to real voters and real people. And through that, we've inspired so many volunteers to come in. We haven't had to pay for anything except for the 75,000 flyers that we've handed out, and our targeted mailers and some of our graphic work and stuff like that. But in general, we've been able to do this so efficiently because so many people believe in what we're doing here, and because we've put in place the kind of organizational structure that can capture anyone's energy. If you have time and you have energy, you want to give it to us, we will find a way to get you to help us here. So, my plan all along was, yes, if we get 100,000, that's what we do. If we get 150, 200,000, whatever, that would be great. But we can execute on my plan with anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. And that's a plan that anyone can take anywhere across the country and be successful in a primary.
You know what? And Anoa, I apologize because I haven't let him get to the second part about Black Lives.
You're fine.
But that portion right there was worth all the time that I could give you tonight and every time that I could bring you back. So that we can talk about your motto. Number one, we need to help you win. All right.
We do.
So I'm reaching out to my listeners, to my followers on Twitter. I want to see somebody make it to Congress. And of course, every district is different, but the strategy is not different. He's not spending money in a market running television ads. He's knocking on 9,000 doors. $50,000 compared to a race that I worked on in South Florida, a candidate running against I can't the lady who wears the hat in Congress. What is her name? Frederica Wilson. I was working on the opposition candidate, Rudy Moise. I shouldn't have said his name. I said it anyway. Oh well. With like a $3 million campaign, and he still lost to Frederica Wilson, and you are giving this incumbent a run for his money for less than $50,000. What you're doing, one, we need to help you win. Two, we need a model, and we need to replicate across the country. For everyone who's feeling down and out, there is a model to be used that can fight back against the system. All right.
Well, let me just tell you, if you give me $3 million, I could beat anyone in the United States. So that's number one. But no, in all seriousness, here's the thing. It's so crucial that we win this, not because we got to get Norcross, yes, that's important, not because Alex Law's got to get in there, yes, that's important. But one thing that is so crucially important with our race is what we want to do is create this model, this $50,000 model, that we can train young people or progressives across the country every single cycle. And it is not hard once you're in Congress to find $50,000 to give to these candidates. And we can set up exciting, young, progressive candidates all across the country to go and run and make a difference where they are. And one cynical thing I would say is that unless we win, people will not pay attention to this model. If we do really well, if we come in second by this much, which I can't see a scenario where it's either we're going to lose by a little or we're going to win by a little. It's going to be very close. But if we lose by a little, by those 500 votes that your listeners could have made the difference making phone calls, or I could have spent an extra day out there knocking on doors, people will not listen to this model. They'll write it off as, hey, it didn't work, even though we are doing something that no one in the history of South Jersey has done, taking on these guys. And we're being so successful with it through this model, through this efficiency. So when we win, that is part of our plan, to put it together and to train people all across the country.
Okay, Alex, I've had you on, man. Listen, thanks so much for your time. I don't want to hold you too much longer. Everyone has his website. I am fascinated with this $50,000 model because it is unheard of. It is obscene. It is disgusting what you're doing over there with $50,000, and it needs to be replicated across the country. And you're right. If you lose, people are going to turn away from it. I won't, personally, but your average person would turn away from it. We need to help you win. Everyone listening, I am urging you, if you want to see how a grassroots movement can win, let's look at Alex Law. Go to his website. You decide for yourself if you're going to contribute time, money, or your talent. That's your choice. But I think it's something that's worth investigating. Alex, I want to have you back a little bit more.
We'll talk Black Lives Matter. We'll talk all the progressive issues you want next time.
Yeah, tonight is about strategy because it's a lot of people who are.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah,
that was
a lot
really,
of people
really
are
good.
down about what to do tomorrow, and the truth about what you're saying is it had to have started almost last year, and from there we know what to do. So Alex, listen, thanks so much for the time, man. My computer finally rebooted, so I wanted to give you this and thank you for coming on, and definitely we want to get you back whenever we can get you back, man.
Okay, good. I'll be back soon, and we'll talk policy.
Sounds good. Ladies,
all right.
Alex Law, go to his website. I'm going to tweet him, and I want you to follow him on Twitter, and we will go from there. All right, I have a caller who's been patient.